We're tracking the top story of the hour for you. The White House has confirmed that the new $100,000 fee for H-1B visa applicants, which takes effect on the 21st of September, will not affect current visa holders in any way. Now, the White House has reiterated that they can continue to leave and re-enter the US as they always have. The one-time fee will only apply to new visa applications. Well, it's important to understand that US President Donald Trump signed the proclamation in an effort to curb what his administration called an overuse of the program, which of course is essentially for skilled foreign workers. Well, on this, my colleague Kate Fisher brings us more.
Well, there's shock and confusion over the immigration status of thousands of these H-1B visa holders, most of whom are, of course, Indian. Now, until now, it costs around $1,500 in administrative fees to apply for an H-1B visa. But now companies will have to pay $100,000 per employee each year that they are working under this visa. I've sought some clarification from the White House who say that this will only apply to new visa applications, not renewals or to current visa holders. And it will first apply during the upcoming visa lottery. So anyone who won their visa in this year's lottery in 2025, it won't apply to them. So those already with a visa will not have to pay this. Nonetheless, there is real concern among many of the companies who employ thousands of these visa holders, like Amazon, for example, who has written to their employees saying if they are H-1B visa holders, they need to remain in the US, even if they had upcoming planned travel. And if they're outside of the US right now, they should do their best to get back into the US before that Sunday deadline. And if they can't do that, then they should stay outside of the country until Amazon has worked out how to deal with this new immigration situation. And of course, it is the tech sector that is most affected by this. But it is another example of the way this Trump administration is cracking down on immigration in new ways. Kate Fisher, NDTV, Washington.
Well, on this, we have Mr. Sameer Khetkar joining us on the telecast. He's a US immigration lawyer. Firstly, sir, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. Now, sir, I wish to understand from you, of course, the White House has gone back and forth on its stance on who essentially, the new proclamation applies to. But in the latest, they've come up with a clarification saying that, the visa fee only applies to new applicants. Now, does this in any manner ease the anxiety around, the H-1B visa proclamation?
I think it definitely should ease a lot of anxiety for H-1B visa holders that are not currently in the US. On Friday, we thought that anybody who had an H-1B who was not in the US had to return back to the US by Saturday, unless they were going to get subject to the proclamation. We now know that's not the case. And a very, very small percentage of people are now subject to the proclamation. These would be new H-1B cases that are filed beginning tomorrow.
Right, so you've mentioned that there was a lot of anxiety, and you said that people who were especially outside of the United States and were on this visa were especially scared as to what would happen. Is there still a certain sense of uncertainty or anxiety with respect to what is going to happen next, given the fact that the Trump administration has initially gone back and forth on its word?
Well, there still is a great deal of uncertainty because we actually don't have full clarity yet. We think it only applies to new visas, but based on the clarifications that were issued today, it still might involve extensions, renewals, change of employer petitions for the upcoming months, and certainly will apply to lottery cases for next year, of which there will be several thousand, right? So there's still a lot of uncertainty that's going to have to be addressed and clarified over the coming months. We expect lawsuits challenging this proclamation as illegal. So there's still a lot to come, but at least that initial wave of anxiety, we don't have to deal with that anymore.
But sir, I also wish to understand from you, Trump has this entire idea for America. It's of course hiring American, like he calls it. Could this policy perhaps even be counterintuitive or even backfire for US companies by, driving global talent away, given the fact that, the cost of bringing in employees from other nations is a lot now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of beating this drum for many years, but half of all billion-dollar, startups in the U.S. were created by at least one H-1B founder. There are studies that show that states that have H-1B, visa holders have higher rates of patents and innovation, right? All of our clients, big technology companies that hire H-1B talent, do so not because they're trying to find lower cost workers. They actually end up spending more per capita on these employees in terms of very high salaries plus all the H-1B costs, legal and administrative fees, than they otherwise would because they can't find anybody. So there is some reform needed. There is some abuse of the program, but this is way too broad of a stroke that's being brushed here.
Right, and I also wish to understand the legal aspect of this. Of course, this is a proclamation that's been signed by the US president. Help us understand that, if this has to be taken up in a court of law, what are the legal remedies that citizens have, and what essentially does it happen when, somebody finds themselves in a state where, their visa could be challenged or there could be a possibility of it not getting renewed?
Well, it's not that the visa won't be renewed. See, the proclamation would restrict entry into the US unless that $100,000 fee is paid. And the reason they worded it like that is because earlier this year, our Supreme Court ruled that the president has broad powers to restrict the entry of foreign nationals into the US for national security purposes, right? So for that reason, they purposefully worded the proclamation that way to help withstand a court challenge. And so we don't know how that challenge would go. On the one hand, it's very difficult to argue that H-1B holders pose a national security threat. On the other hand, the president has broad powers to restrict entry. So it remains to be seen how this is going to go.
We're absolutely saying, of course, it remains to be seen, but it's also understandable that, big corporations are in a tight spot, that, of course, many of them have even issued internal advisories to their employees asking them to sort of, either stay in US or not, go anywhere from the US or come back from wherever they were. So around you, do you still see that sense of uncertainty prevail?
No, I mean, we were helping some of our clients locate their employees and actually had a few, jump onto flights from India and come back today before we receive these additional clarifications. But at this point, there isn't a rush. There isn't a need for someone to rush back to the US. It's okay if they have a H-1B visa and they're currently abroad. They should have no issues re-entering the US.
Right, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing those details with us.